This is the Olympus Stylus Epic. I got really lucky in picking this one up for $75 at the end of 2024. And over the past couple of months, I've put 20 rows through this camera. This camera hasn't left my pocket, it hasn't left my side. Every time I leave the house, I take this camera with me, and I have a lot of thoughts that I want to share with you about this camera. This camera today goes for about $300 if you're trying to buy it brand new on eBay, but is it worth that price? Let's chat about it. I want to talk to you about the history of the camera. I want to talk to you about how to use the camera. I want to show you some images that I've taken with this camera. I want to talk to you about some likes and dislikes that I have when it comes to actually using this camera. And in the end, I'll be letting you know if I'm going to be keeping this camera or if I'm going to be selling it off to somebody else to make use of. Let's dive right into this one. First, let's take the clock back to 1997 when this camera was originally released. This camera was designed by a well-renowned Olympus camera designer. I'll put his name down here for you to check out because I'm not sure how to pronounce it and I don't want to butcher the man's name. The genius behind a lot of Olympus Pen series cameras as well as a lot of their OM cameras. The Stylus Epic was a game changer because it brought advanced features like a fast 2.8 lens and weather sealing into a small package as you see right here. It was also a follow-up to the very popular Olympus Infinity Stylus, also known as the Olympus Mju I. Now, a couple of fun facts about this camera. Did you know that this was one of the last film cameras that Olympus made before they decided to go with the digital wave? This explains a lot of the features that you see on this camera, including the 2.8 fast lens and the autofocus system. This camera was made as a camera for everyone, but it quickly became popular amongst street photographers and travelers because of its small size and the simplicity of use, and also the sharp results that you get from it. The autofocus system is so advanced that it can lock on subjects even in extremely low light. Ever since the release of the camera, the price of this camera has fluctuated a lot. When it was first originally released, you could find it from anywhere between $100 and $150 US. When the digital wave took over, you can find this in thrift stores on eBay for anywhere between $10 and $50. Imagine those times, finding this camera for $50, like even in today's world, would be an absolute steal. But then fast forward to the 2000s, fast forward to today, if you're looking to pick one of these cameras up, you're looking at anywhere between $200 and $350. Sometimes you see it in beat up condition, people selling it for parts as $100. Like, that is just crazy. A lot of this has to do with the limited quantity of good products, and a lot of it has to do with the popularity that this camera has gotten over the past couple of years. Now I'm going to show you how to load the camera and also show you all the functions that this camera has to offer. This is the body of the Olympus Stylus Epic. Beautiful camera, nice, smooth, sleek, gets the job done. Mine says Olympus Stylus Epic on the front of the camera. Yours might say something else. It might say Olympus Mju II or the Mju II. These are both the exact same camera. It was just called the Mju II in the United States. Now let's go over what this camera does and what the buttons do. On the top of the camera, there's really not that much. All you have is this shutter release button. You can half press it to set your focus and set your exposure and then recompose and then take the shot. In the front here, you have the camera door or the lens cover, lens barrier. This slides open, the lens pops out a little bit, but the lens always stays close to the body of the camera. So if you're wondering why the lens doesn't come out, that's just how it was designed. So this is the camera door and the lens barrier. This camera is an electronic camera that has a lot of electronic functions. I'm just going to tell you what all the functions on the front of the camera are. At the top here, you have your flash unit. This is the flash unit on the camera, comes built in, powered by the battery. Over here, the red dot here is your self-timer indicator. It flashes when you have the self-timer function on. Over here in the front of the camera, I'm not quite sure if you can see it, there are two little black rectangles, trapezoids here in the front of the camera. Those are your autofocus indicators. In the front here, you have, just underneath those two autofocus indicators, you have your remote indicator. That's just if you want to use the remote function on this camera. Right next to that, you have this little circle right here. That is the light sensor of the camera. That light sensor is what tells the lens, which is the next thing over here, what to set the aperture, what to set the shutter speed. That sensor is also very important. And just above the lens, you have your viewfinder. Viewfinder is just this little sliver up here on top of the lens of the camera, and you have this beautiful 35mm f2.8 Olympus large aperture lens. Pretty nice, pretty sharp. It also says multi autofocus all weather sealing on the front of the camera, and those are all the functions in the front of the camera. Let's close that. Right, if that's closed, nothing happens. Once it's open, you'll see these little functions on the back of the camera. These show up. It's an electronic camera, as I said. This is a flash button. It just takes you through all the flash modes that this camera has to offer. If I press it once, it just turns off red eye. Over here, no flash. This camera can shoot up to 2.8, and the flash won't go off if that function is on. Over here, that's flash on. The flash is on the camera. Next thing is just a little, this little function here is for the night mode. Over here, night mode and red eye turn on just to get no red eye in people's eyes. And those are all the flash functions. Next to this, you have your self timer and the remote function. Once you have this pressed on, the camera is not, the camera is going to go into self timer mode, and the front indicator here is going to start flashing. You can see it's turned on. You can see what that does, what happens. I'm just going to wait for it to take the shot. And there we go. That's how that works. And yeah, next to that, you have this little rewind button right here. If you push that in, the camera is going to automatically rewind. I think I'm almost done this roll. Let me just finish this off. So you can see the rewind function. One more shot. Okay, and the camera's come to an end. Now it's going to start rewinding. You're going to see it go all the way back. I might fast forward this part a little bit. Okay, so once that's done, it starts flashing E. E means empty. When you close that and open it again, it will tell you that it's on E. If you get your camera and it's flashing E, it doesn't mean error. E means empty. Take that out. This is how you reload film to the camera. Take that out. This is how it looks on the inside. Beautiful, sleek. I'm going to be loading this roll right here. It's the Agfa Ultra 100. Take it, just take the bottom, slide that right in there, and just put that all the way to the front. You don't want it to go too far in unless the camera wouldn't load. You just want it to just sit right there and just hit that orange sticker there in the camera. You just want it to just be snug and just in there. So once I close the camera now, still flashing E. Now it's on 1. If it goes back to flashing E, it means it wasn't loaded properly. You can open up the back and then reload it again. Right, so that's it for the back of the camera. On the side of the camera, you have your battery door. To open that up, you see here it says open. You just have to push this with your hands or with a pencil or with something else, and you can see the battery compartment. This camera takes a CR123A battery. You can find it on Amazon and your Best Buy or your local store, camera store. They sell these type of cameras, and it says it on the inside too. It takes a CR123A battery. Just takes this in, push that right in there, close that, open your camera, and it should be ready to shoot. Underneath the camera, you have your screw mount to place this on a tripod, and just your serial number, and then Olympus, Tokyo, Japan, assembled in Hong Kong, parts made in Japan. That's it for the camera. Now that you know how to use the camera and what all the buttons and all the functions do on this camera, let me show you some images and situations that I've shot with this camera under, and then we'll chat on the other side and let you know some things that I like and some things that I don't like about the Olympus Stylus. So let me talk to you about a couple of things that I like about this camera. The first thing being the sharp lens. Now this camera has a 2.8 lens on it, and as you've seen with the images that I shot with this camera, the images are beautiful, the images are sharp. With some point and shoot cameras, sometimes you have some lens aberrations on the edges, you have some not so sharp parts, you have some sharp parts, but this camera, these images, the lens itself is sharp all the way through. For a point and shoot camera, this camera is top notch. You want to take this out in the rain, you want to take this out in the snow, you want to take this out on a hot day. This camera has weather sealing, which makes it very, very compact and usable under multiple conditions. Now, living here in Canada, we have rain, we have snow, we have sunshine, we have cold, we have so many different situations that sometimes I don't want to take my camera out into. And having a camera like this that has weather sealing, I haven't tested it in like pouring rain or anything like that, but having a camera that you know is weather sealed is actually a plus when it comes to the different situations that I find myself in. The next thing is the compact size. Now, I can't stress enough how small and compact this camera is. Now, looking at the size of my hands are pretty big, pretty normal size for somebody my height. And then if I put the camera in my hand, you see how my hand just like engulfs the whole thing. This camera is so small. I don't even understand if I can tell you how small it is. Some people compare it to like a saber-tooth, the saber-tooth tiger. It's so small, it's so sleek. It takes beautiful images. For a camera this size to be taking such images as it does, I understand why the camera costs so much. But the compact size, the compact nature of it, the fact that it fits in my hand, slides in my pocket, I can take it with me everywhere I'm going, any day, any type of pants that I'm wearing is a very, very big plus for me. And this is one of the reasons why I've put so many rolls through this camera over the past couple of months. A couple of other things that I like about this camera are the modes that it comes with, the different flash modes, the remote function. It has a remote function. I don't have a remote for the camera, but it does have a remote function, the self timer, and also the slow press and the release that this camera has allows you to compose your photo and then expose for a different part of the photo if you want to. Now, when it comes to the things that I don't like about this camera, the first thing is the viewfinder. Looking at the viewfinder on this camera, the viewfinder is just a little bit small for my liking. Now, that's because I'm coming from using SLRs and using rangefinders that have bigger viewfinders in them. So sometimes when I bring this up to my eye, I find myself searching for the viewfinder, trying to find it, trying to get there, and just take this shot right away. The viewfinder is a little bit small for my liking, but it may be fine for you. The second thing that I don't really like about this camera is the fact that it doesn't have exposure compensation. Now, exposure compensation, for folks that don't know, is the camera automatically overexposing or underexposing the film stock based on the film stock you have in your camera. For someone like me that likes to shoot a lot of expired film, exposure compensation helps me out a lot because it allows me to give expired films 1 stop and 2 stops over exposure. This camera doesn't have that function, so I do have to always shoot fresh film in this camera. This camera is a nice compact camera. I was able to pick it up for $75, which is an absolute steal. Now, will I be keeping this camera around? It's 100% yes for me. I love this camera. I love the images that I get from this camera. I love the compact nature of the camera. I love the sharp lens. Now, there's a couple of things that I mentioned I don't like about this camera, but I can definitely look beyond those things. Now, do I recommend that you pick one up? Yes. If you have the money, if you have the means to be able to afford to pick one up, I will 100% suggest that you pick one up. The camera is beautiful, it's amazing, it's intuitive. You don't really necessarily have to know a lot about film or film photography to be able to use the camera. It just works. If you have the money, if you have the opportunity to pick one up, I 100% suggest that you do. If you like this style of video, if you like my face, if you like my type of content, please make sure you visit my website, FilmStockReel.com. I'm going to have a blog post in the description down below. It's going to be showcasing everything that I've talked about in this video, showing you the images in more depth so you can take a look at the images, take a look at the sharpness, take a look at the camera that I have with me, and just get a little bit more of a backstory about this camera. Thank you so much for watching. If this video has provided you any value, please make sure you do the things. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, as this goes a very long way to making sure I produce more content like this. Until next time, make sure you stay safe, make sure you shoot film, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye. We did it, we did it, we did it.